So at this point, all of the JavaScript code has been ported over to PureScript. As I said last time, it's very imperative PureScript. I would like to refactor quite a lot of it so that it becomes more idiomatic, use more functional constructions, that sort of thing. But the first thing I'd like to do is do two smaller, simpler refactorings. One is to get rid of the dependence on this fun, these fun types, and the other thing is to just break up the modules a little bit so it's easier to see, the structure of the code, and we can use module exports to make things a little simpler. Okay, so let's start with fun, since everything's all in one place. I'm going to fire up PSCID. Let's kill this first. PSCID. Okay, and I'm going to restart the server on this side, and hopefully, good. Okay. Okay, so let's start at the top and look for fun and see which ones make sense to keep and which don't make sense to keep. Okay, so for foreign imports, I'm almost entirely happy to keep them using fun. I think that's fine, especially when we have wrapper functions like this compile Compte here, because this is when we break things into modules. This is going to be what I actually export. Okay, let's see what the next one is. Okay, here's the next one. The next one's compile. Okay, so I don't see any reason why this has to be, why this has to use this type. So I'm actually going to turn this into a regular function. Okay, so let's move this onto the left. Get rid of this function call and save. And now all of the usages of this obviously are going to break. So let's have a look for those. Here's one. There's another one. Here's another one. And two more. Okay. Looks like that might work. Okay, that's one down. Let's look for the next one. So F1. Oops. Okay. The next one's set up iframes. So let's see where I use that. That's only called once, and it's called here. Again, since this is a foreign import, I'm actually fine with this being. Fine with this using this type. Since it does take a callback, I might eventually wrap this in Compte anyway. Let's carry on. Oops. So let's look for this type. Okay, execute obviously doesn't need this type, so we'll use f, and we'll use a function type here. We can get rid of this, bring these into scope on the left hand side of the equals. And now obviously everywhere that uses execute is null. We're going to need this run wrapper, so we can get rid of that. It looks like that's everything. Okay, we can now get rid of this function from the imports, which is great. Okay, what's next? On editor changed, again, this is going to be foreign function. We can leave this as is for now. This setup editor with function looks like something that can be replaced, so let's do that. Same thing again. BC over, we'll look for usages. Here's one. It looks like that's the only one. It looks like load options can be simplified too. So this can be a regular old F, and again, oops. Again, just moving this over to the left hand side. Okay, so let's put that there. And then look for usages of load options, that's the one we saw before. And it looks like that's it, so let's save and make sure that works. Okay, yep, I missed this piece, so let's move that over. Okay. Okay, that looks fine. So let's go back up. Where were we? Here's one, set obsession. Is another one we can update. So this is going to take, actually this takes a callback as an argument as well. So this might be another good candidate for Compte, but I guess we'll find out. So let's break this up slightly. Okay, so now our callback is going to have type string to f, like this. And we'll take the callback as an argument, and we'll just call the callback without the wrapper. Let's look for usages. Here's one. We're going to have to fix up with session by the looks of things. Yes, so let's look for that. Here's with session. Again, we can just break this up a little bit. Spread this out. 3. And move the string onto the left hand side. This. Okay. Okay. Let's see. That seems to build as well. Okay, fantastic. Let's see if there's any more usages of that type constructor. Fun. Okay, upload just seems okay. Because we have a wrapper type, a wrapper function I should say. Load file from gist, again we have a wrapper, so I don't have any concern there. Set query parameters. This is a foreign function. I'm probably happy to keep this as it is, especially since we're going to wrap it up as set query string anyway. Now, I will make an exception for some of these because I want these to have similar types to the ones in the jQuery module. So I'm actually going to expand these on the foreign function side. But before I do that, I'm actually going to look and see if there's any others that I missed. Okay, so here's one, change view mode. Now we'll pass in the jQuery element as a regular input. Let's look for usages. There it is. Okay, any others? None here. None here. That seems to be all of them. Let's look for run f1 just to make sure. This one is calling is. This one's calling back. Oh, bundle and execute. This seems like something we could simplify slightly. So here we're using f1, and we can instead use a function. Actually, this will be another refactoring that we could possibly do. We might be able to pull out this function. Oh, maybe not. Oh, we can see anyway. Either way, let's just tie this up a little bit by moving these over. Okay. Okay, I don't see any others, but let's just double check. Save, we might lose some imports here. Oh, not quite. So we have a run f1 still here that we can get rid of. There's another is. Load from gist. Store session, filter, I think. That might be all of them. Default bundle and execute. Okay, so we do need to change this type. We can do this easily enough. And while we're at it, we'll just align things in the type a little better. Oops. Okay. Bundle and execute thermite. Here's another one that we need to change. Actually, the type should be identical. Okay. The type definition in bundle and execute. Okay. Little typo. Oh, that's here. I just need to again tidy this up right here. And then we're going to unindent all of this a little bit. Okay, Fantastic, that seems to build. Alright, so let's take care of those jQuery imports. So I had is. So we have is, filter, get value. It just seems like those three. So let's change the types here first of all. Okay, so this is going to change. We can fix that up here. Filter, another one. Here's another one with is. So the get value. Seems like we only use get value maybe, so this should build. But of course, there's still an error because we need to update main. Okay, so let's change the runtime representation of these functions so that they're actually consistent with the correct representations for the types we gave them. So here we'll have to return an encourage function. And one more function, no arguments, for f itself. Okay, so this looks correct. The same thing for is, so we can just actually copy this. Oops. Same thing here. Same thing essentially for get value, but not quite. You can have one fewer argument. So something like this. Okay. So that seems like a good point to stop and do a quick test. Okay, do a hard refresh here. That seems to work. Let's try a different page. We can try different view modes. Try changing the backend. If that seems to work, show.js perhaps. Okay, everything seems to work, so I'm going to commit this. And I'll say that we're refactoring, reduce usage of f_x. Okay, fantastic. So my next refactoring was going to be to break up the modules a little bit. So there's obviously lots of different pieces of functionality here, and I can break out individual modules for each of those. So I'm going to make a directory under source called, we'll call it try, that's fine. And then I'll create a few files. So off the top of my head, a few I can think of is some gist functionality would make sense to break out into its own file, and we'll need a foreign module to go along with that. Also, the API, the actual API we're going to call, and the JavaScript file to go with that. We'll need something for, well, I suppose these types can go in with the API. We'll need, here's gist. This is all editor related functionality. This is gist related. Oh, we'll probably need something for sessions, so let's make a file for that. Caching is all related to sessions. GUID is also related to sessions. Publishing is related to gists. Loading file from a gist. Oh, query parameters. Okay. So let's call that query string.pers. And we'll probably need. Do we have any input? Oh, we have get query string. Okay, so we'll need a foreign module for that as well. Anything else? Oh, jQuery extra. So I'm actually going to call this control monad f. And I'm going to match this file name, jQuery. So let's make that directory. and then I want to touch source control monad f jQuery extras.pers and extras.js. And these things are things that I'd like to pull request onto the original jQuery library at some point, but for now I'm just going to keep them in this module. Let's see what else we have. Query parameters, jQuery, navigation seems like something that could actually be bundled with query string. Maybe we want to rename that module in that case. Let's just you know, it might actually be worth looking at the DOM module to see if there's actually a wrapper for this already. It'll be in PureScript DOM. So that's something to do with events. That's probably not what we want. Location, here we go. So location on the window object. This seems to be a getter. Let's look at let's see if I can find usages for location in here. It looks like that's the only one, so maybe this is mutable, perhaps. Here's DOM HTML location. Okay, so we could use set href. That would actually make sense. So maybe that's what we should do instead of using this wrapper. That seems like a good thing to start with, actually. So instead of making this a foreign import, what I'll do is I'll remove this from here, and then I'll just implement this in PureScript so we can get the window and get the location on the window, and then we're going to do something with the location. We need to bring the URI into scope as an argument. So now we need a function from a location to an f, and I think we said that was going to be set href URI. And this is saying that it didn't match type string with unit, and presumably that's because this function returns a string. Set href returns a string. Interesting. Let's look at the source. So foreign import. Let's look at the JavaScript. Set href. Looks like that might actually be an error. This doesn't seem to return a string. So let's just assume that's incorrect for the time being and use void to change the return type to unit. Okay, so this is something good to test, so let's test that. Let's make a build. So no, we can't parse any of these modules, so let's just make these into empty modules for now. Say module try.api where module try.just where. Oh, I'm putting these in the JavaScript files, that's obviously wrong. Let's put it in here. Thought the syntax is highlighting looked wrong. Query string. Session. Yeah, let's try again. Oh, one more in extras, of course. Okay, great. Let's try that out. So if I change the backend to core, I believe it should change the URI, which it looks like it's done, but just double check, I'm going to hard refresh. Okay, that seems like it's worked. Okay, great. Okay, so let's start moving some of this stuff over. First of all, we can start with, let's say, jQuery extras. Okay, so we have these 4 or 5 elements. This looks like it goes with get value, so let's keep that here. Whoops. But let's move these 5 functions over into jQuery extras. And let's be thorough and specify module exports while we're at it. Okay, so we have click, empty, filter, is, and I'm going to export get value maybe instead of get value. Okay, so jQuery isn't in scope, but we can bring it into scope. Selector as well. F, nullable, DOM, maybe. Units and prelude. And 2 maybe. Okay. Oops, 2 maybe of course comes from nullable. Okay, we of course need to move the implementations over, so that's these 5 functions. Say strict and follow it by the exports, and that looks good. So let's try main. This should fail now. Of course, these things aren't in scope, but we can bring them in like this. While we're at it, I'd quite like to change all of these to use qualified imports. So let's do that. Okay, so select. Let's find all the usages of select, case sensitive, and replace them with jQuery.select. Replace all. Okay. Empty. So here's empty, jQuery.empty, jQuery.empty. Seems to be unhappy. Let's see. Here's extras. And it looks like empty is exported. Let's make sure that's saved. Not sure why that's happening. Let's try build. Try again. Okay, that's better. Not sure what was happening there. So let's replace all creates with jQuery.create. Append text similarly. Let's see where we're up to. Add class. Okay, let's replace those 2. Save. Get value maybe. That's in jQuery extras, so we can bring that in like this. Is jQuery, that is. Empty. That's a iframe. Okay, oh, here's another one. On. Oh, there's a removed class. jQuery, there's quite a few of these. I guess that's to be expected. Get value maybe. Display. Okay, hide seems like a good one to use find and replace. Display. Another on. Oh, one more, ready. Get value, maybe. There's one, there's another one. Third, click. One more. Set value. Another there is. Okay. So I wonder if I get rid of one of these, it's going to complain. Oh, that's unfortunate. I think we'd like the compiler to allow one open import per qualified module, but we don't have that right now. I think that's on the issue list somewhere. That's fine. Let's leave it as it is. At least now we know where jQuery is used because it's qualified everywhere, so that's good. Okay, what's next? Just seems like, oh, let's do something simpler. Let's do query string. So we had get query, whoops, get query string maybe, for example. There's one. Get query string maybe. Get query parameters, get query string, set query parameters, and set query string. So these all seem to want to go into a query string module. So let's move those over. And we don't need to export all of these. We'll export get query params, get query string maybe, set query string. Let's add some comments. Update the specified key in URL. Query parameters. Okay, this one can say that we're going to try to get the key from the URL's query parameters, and this one will say get all of the URL's query parameters. And this doesn't need a comment since it's a foreign input anyway. Okay, where's get query string in here? Let's get query string and set query parameters. So those want to go in here. Okay, again we need to go through the inputs. So we have f and dom. Need to import data.stir map qualified. We'll certainly want a prelude input. String. Okay, so data.string is going to be imported as string. Wrap comes from data new type. Array is another qualified import. Okay, maybe tuple. F11 comes from uncarried, as does run F11. And just from maybe decode URI component. Okay, if we go back to main, hopefully we get a lot of, well, once we tidy these things up, hopefully we get a lot of inputs that we don't need. So get query string maybe. Looks like I might have to restart the editor plugin again. Let's maybe I can do it from here. Restart PSCID. I'm going to find JSON output. Okay. Oops, wrong one. That's why. Okay. So set query string. rid of some of these unnecessary imports. Okay, so things are tidying up a little bit. We're already down to 700 lines or thereabouts. Okay, so what's next? We can do session, perhaps. Let's see what goes in session. Setup session will probably go in session. So what's this do? This looks at the session by ID. Oh, that's obviously not correct. So it creates a new session ID. Okay. That seems like the sort of thing that ought to go into that module. Random GUID certainly is something that we can encapsulate in that module. Try restore cached code and cache current code perhaps are some things we want to put in that module, but I think I'd like to refactor these because I don't want them touching the UI. I'd like to have these functions just be pure wrappers for the local storage API. But we certainly can put store session and try retrieve session into that module. Okay. There's also a with session. So what does this do? This is basically wrapper code for the setup editor function and the just loading function. So that's probably not the sort of thing we want to have in there. Let's see what else we have. Iframes is all sort of logic. Let's see, I think that's about it, so let's move that over. Okay, let's go back to the foreign module. We had store session and try retrieve session. Whoops, put that in here. Okay. So maybe the thing to do here is to wrap these up with nicer types and to just export them from this module. I think that would be fine. So let's make these use, well, actually what we can do is give these slightly uglier names. And then provide wrapper functions. Okay, so store session is going to be a function with 2 arguments. May as well keep the record, it's not doing any harm. It serves as documentation if nothing else. Okay, so we'll have 3 things exported. We'll have store session, we'll have try retrieve session, and setup session, which I might rename. Okay, so store session is going to take presumably a session ID and a set of values, and it's going to run f2 of store session underscore with session ID and values. Try retrieve session is going to do the same thing. This takes a session ID and it's going to return a maybe. So I don't see why we can't do some tidying up of the result. This is going to take a session ID. It's going to do 2 maybe after run f1 try retrieve session underscore. That's obviously the wrong input. Passing the session ID. Let's move random GUID up. types to bring in, f1.2, DOM again, unknown type f, bring that in too, maybe random. Let's break this up a little bit. Okay. Unknown type unit, right? Let's bring that in as prelude. Random, okay. ToString as. Hexadecimal. Random int. String.drop. Let's import data.string as string. Unwrap comes from new type. App comes from data functor app. Nullable. Get query string maybe. Comes from our new module. Just and nothing. Set query string. F with function. Oh, I see. Oh no. I see. Like this. Or rather like this. Okay, so it's saying that, oh, of course, we need an F wrapper here. Whoops, DOM F, like this, for all F. Okay, fantastic. So, let's go back to main. Obviously we're going to have some issues here. Let's look for store session. Chances are we have to restart. PSCID. And now we can bring these in from the appropriate place. Store session. And now these functions are actually reading the DOM and storing the session based on what's in the DOM, which seems like a nice split in terms of code ownership and factoring the code. One thing that's slightly bothersome is that setup session is still accessing the DOM. Maybe this function doesn't belong in here after all, but actually I want to rename this anyway. Let's call this create session ID if necessary. Let's write it like this to be consistent. We'll rename it here. Okay, and then back in main, I'll have an issue somewhere. Setup session, it's called here. And this is the callback that's called when we do generate a new session ID, I suppose. Let's go to the top. Try.session, I'm going to have to import this value too. Okay, so try retrieve. Whoops, it's here. Now we can get rid of this wrapper, which is great. Probably also, try retrieve one more. Here it is. Try retrieve. Could not match maybe with null. Well, now we don't need the two maybe, which is good. We also don't need this wrapper. Okay, now a bunch of warnings. Tidying up the import list again. Okay. What do we have left? Just API and gist. So let's look for all the gist related things. Here we go. Try load file from gist, publish new gist, upload gist. That looks about right. Do we have any others? Oh, load from gist. Okay. Let's take that one too. That seems like it goes with this try load file from gist function. Oh, but now that I look at this, actually, this is a UI wrapper for the existing functionality. So we don't necessarily want that function. We might want to get gist by ID. So let's actually bring that out and put that next to try load file from gist. And now we'll take all of these and move that into gist.pers. Okay, so let's move gist info up to the top. There's this sort of data type in this module. Let's specify the export. So we'll have gist info without its constructors. Well, it doesn't have constructors, but we're treating it like an abstract data type. Let's have upload gist Compte, which I'm going to rename these. There's no real reason for the upload gist Compte. There's no need for the Compte naming anymore. We're just going to export things with nice names. Publish new gist here. Let's see, this seems to be a wrapper again, so I actually come to think that I don't necessarily want this. Let's put this back in main. Okay, so back in gist. We'll have get gist by ID with an underscore and remove the Compte naming here. Use an underscore. Try load file from gist. Again, do the same. So get gist by ID. Let's export that. And try load file from gist. Okay. Now all the usual imports that we need. Done. Let's not forget prelude. Keep making this mistake. Accept T. Okay, that can come in from here. And the constructor, of course. Compte. What else? F. Okay. Make this one 1. Let's not miss that one. Data.either. Run F4. Okay, now we need to bring over the foreign definitions. So we need try load file from gist, upload gist, and get gist by ID. Okay, let's put these in gist.js. Use strict. Okay, and let's not forget the change in naming. Okay, so gist.pers. Let's hop out and do a build. Okay, go back to main. Let's save here. Now, of course, we don't need these names like this. Let's pull those in from try.gist. Let's just look for Compte. Compile Compte, of course, is another one we'll change in a second. Get Compte. Get gist by ID Compte. It's another one we can remove. Try load file from gist Compte. Let's bring those in from try.gist. Get gist by ID. Okay, that seems to build just fine. Okay, let's get onto the last example, which is compile API. Whoops, compile API and get. Where am I using get? I forget. That's to pull the bundle, of course. So that can go in. So get can actually go in the API module as well. So let's take both of those. Again, use strict. Okay, so let's see. That looks fine. Let's go back to main.pers. We have compile API and compile Compte. Actually, we're going to want the typed wrapper, I think, which will compile and actually decode the results. So let's take the data types while we're at it. So all of this. Let's take this over to api.pers. Okay, and we'll move all of the actual decoding down to the bottom. Okay, so I'm going to call compile API compile underscore, and compile Compte is just going to become compile. And of course we have a giant pile of imports that we need to fix up. Start with prelude. Okay, so options is going to come from, well, that one, that's good. Generic is going to come from data generic wrap. Okay. Decode, I found that automatically, generic decode. Default options, tagged object, great. Alternation operator, we can bring that in like this, Control-Alt. Okay, just like that. We need F4, we need backend config. Oh, this is a problem. This needs to be, we have to create a types module to store that in. That's fine. F1, accept-t, Compte, run F1.4, make F1.1, probably F as well. Backend config, of course, right? So let's pause for a second and create try types.pers, and in there we'll take. We might find a few types we want, but chances are it's probably just the backend type. Oh, we wanted get as well, didn't we? So let's take that. We'll call that get, and get underscore. Okay. DOM is still unknown. Command F1.3 and F1.3. Right. Whoops. Okay. Back to main. Looking for types again. Well, JS seems like something we probably want to move over as well. Oh, and backend, of course. Let's take these conversion functions with us. Actually, let's just leave backend. No, I'm taking it. That's fine. Alright, types. That seems to be all the ones we need. Let's move those over here. So try.types where? Okay. Backend config, unknown type F. That's fine. Let's bring that in. Obviously console down unit comes from prelude. Okay, that seems happy enough. Okay, let's go back to main. And of course, backend config. We'll need to do a pod build. Backend config will come from try.types now. Backend from string also. Backend also. Another one with its constructors. compile Compte, whoops, now just becomes compile. Of course we need all of these constructors. Compile success. Have I not saved something maybe? Backend config. Yes, this didn't get saved. Or rather it didn't get rebuilt. Foreign needs to be brought in. Oh, but of course we said we were going to wrap this up, didn't we? So this was going to be compile result. Well, actually it's going to be either something or a compile result. Okay, foreign still needs to be brought in. Now we need to actually pass the result. So now we need a function from foreign to either t or compile result. I'm pretty sure it's going to start with decode from foreign class. Let's think, that's going to give an accept, so we can unwrap the accept. No, that's because that's going to give that gives accept t. Perhaps we can run accept. Okay, great. Now let's have a look at the foreign module. We just need to rename these. Okay, back to main. Oh no, in API. It says this is a non-empty list of foreign error. Looks like it didn't quite get the parenthesization right. We can fix that. And while we're at it, let's just tidy up this type. Okay, non-empty list needs to be brought in. We've got this done non-empty, as does foreign error most likely. Okay, this looks good. Let's go back to main. So compile success is still an issue. So let's bring that in, as well as success result. Compile success. Oh, we need to do a pulp build. So we need to bring in this from here, this from here, this from here. Compiler error, compiler errors, JS of course. Error position. Get JS. You know what? This should be using new type. Let's just derive instance new type JS. So some new type range JS. And now we can just use unwrap. Get. It has to be brought in from try.api. Did I fix up the exports? No, I didn't. Compile and get, and now we need to just go through and make sure we export all of these types. So we have compiler error, compile error, compile result, success result, and failed result. Okay, back to main. Get Compte is now just get. unwrap. It's saying that there's no type class instance found. Well, that's obviously incorrect. Let's do a pull build to make sure we have the latest. Okay, we don't need this wrapper. We don't need, let's see what's happening here. Oh, okay, so we need to use the Compte machinery now. We provide a callback. Of course, now we get either. So we either get left of an error or right of a bundle. If we get a bundle, we execute the bundle. Otherwise, we print out to the console. Looks like we have two things with the same name, so I'm going to actually bring the API in qualified as well, and then I can refer to api.compile. Okay, and now here I don't need to decode anymore, and I don't need to run except. Okay, fantastic. Let's tidy up the unnecessary imports. Okay, that's quite a lot. Now we're down to under 500 lines. That's pretty good. Let's see what else we might want to break out. Maybe get backend function is something that could be encapsulated in a module. Hide some types later on, but I'm not particularly bothered about that right now. Everything else seems to be view related. Publish new gist. These are all handlers for various events. With session, caching the code, loading from gists. Basically all wrappers around the functionality we just moved out. See, if we did move out the backend logic, then these functions would be able to be hidden, which would be quite nice. Maybe we could even hide the constructor for backend config and just provide accesses. That could be quite nice. I know one more refactoring I'd like to do, but I'd like to test everything first. Maybe it's worth moving all of the view encapsulating functions, like these foreign functions here, into their own module. That seems to make sense. Execute again, another one, set up iframe. Other than that, I'm pretty happy to leave a lot of this in main. But let's build and do a quick test. Okay, let's do a hard refresh. Okay, so the initial load seems to work. That seems to work. Let's change the, well, let's try view mode. These seem to work, that's good. Backend, let's try Thermite. Excellent. Show.js, good. Turn off auto compile. Okay, let's try out the errors. That looks good. Everything seems to be working. Okay, great. So let's commit all of this. Git status. Git add. Okay. So I said I had one more thing that I'd like to do. I talked about this yesterday a little bit. So in main, we set up a bunch of event handlers, and then we call with session. And or maybe we call with session, maybe we don't. So if we look through this, we call create session ID if necessary, and that's in session. And if we don't create a session ID, no, maybe I'm getting this wrong. So if we do create a session ID, we call this callback. Okay, so then we follow this into with session. Okay, now in with session, we can either run setup editor. Oh, looks like setup editor is still using f1.1. We can definitely tidy that up. Okay, let's move this over. Don't need this anymore. All this thing here. Okay, this probably needs a comment. Okay, so we call setup editor in 3 places. In with session, one option is that we get the cached code, and if we have cached code, then we setup editor here. Okay. Otherwise, we can go to load from gist. That's the other option down here. And in load from gist, in any case, we always finish with setup editor. Okay. So this is sort of like a tail call, but where it happens is unclear. So what I'd like to do is start using continuation passing for this. Okay, so setup editor receives a backend configuration. Okay, so I'm going to make that into a continuation here, and I'm probably going to need the same f type. So let's move that over. Okay, and that's a continuation, so I'll call it k. Instead of setup editor, I'm just going to call k here. Okay. Now load from gist. Here's another one. No need for f1.2 here anymore. We can definitely tidy up this type signature. Looks like I missed 2. Maybe I missed some more. I should look into that. Okay, so 2 arguments. Let's move those over. Actually, we have 3 arguments because I'm going to pass along this callback. Okay, and then just like before, I'm going to call the continuation here. Okay, could not match type backend config. Oh, of course, I got these slightly wrong. Let's move those over. Okay, now load from gist was, well, that no longer needs that wrapper. That's good, but we do need to pass the continuation. Okay, and now in create session, if necessary, we're going to pass this continuation here. But in fact, I need to pass setup editor as my final continuation. So it'd be really nice if I could use the continuation passing monotransformer here, but unfortunately the well, actually maybe I can. That's sort of interesting. So if I do Compte, well, if I do run Compte and I create something, my continuation passing computation here, and then I pass it my callback. So here I'm creating a session ID, and then I'm going to call with session with my session ID. So I need to wrap these both up in Compte, of course. Oh, that seems to work just fine. That's great. So that's quite nice. Now, all of the sort of continuation passing is sort of implicit in here. It reads sequentially, and I just finally call setup editor as my last step. That's nice. Of course, I'm wondering if this. I'm not particularly happy with how a lot of this. It seems to be broken up in a very arbitrary way. Let's put it that way. So, for example, load options is only called in one place. So, really, there's not a good reason why this isn't just inlined into here. In any case, load options is a terrible name. It seems like this is doing a lot of event handling setup. So let's, well, not quite. So it looks at, it does some here, right? Like this is setting up some event handlers, but the rest is looking at query strings. So it actually makes sense to me that this be broken up. Maybe this is a good job for next time though. Okay, so load options is one place. And then setup editor with is only called in one place as well. So that seems like another good place to either combine these into setup editor, or actually maybe this makes sense to sort of mix into load options, since each is sort of a combination of event handlers and non-event handling code. Slight indentation issue there. Okay, so let's have a look. What are these event handlers doing? We get the value out of the code text area, and we set the editor content to that value. Is this used elsewhere? No. And then we wait for editor changes. When we get editor changes, we set the value again, and we cache the code, and we run the compile function. So this function makes sense to get broken out, I think. Funny, this cache current code and compile get run together here, but compile and cache current code get run separately here, which seems a little strange. I'm going to just move this over. I don't see a good reason for this to be together. Now, of course, Backend has a different meaning here, so I'm going to have to unpack this. This is now BC. This is BC. Are there any others? Actually, maybe I don't need this. Okay, and then the final one was load options. So some of these make sense. So these are definitely loading various options from the query string. But this one's sort of different. This is, and this is, yeah, C. So these two seem to go together. So this is selecting the backend drop-down menu item for the selected backend and setting it to checked. And then this one is listening for all of them and listening for change events. Then when it changes, we get the new backend and we navigate to that new URI. So this seems to me to belong somewhere else. This is not loading options. This is setting up the backend menu. Setup backend menu. Oops. Do. And certainly we'll need the backend config. question is, do we use it here anymore? No. Okay. And we'll say that we're setting up event listeners for the backend drop-down menu. Let's fill in the type. This looks pretty good. Except, of course, we have to actually call this. So we'll call it right after load options. Okay, quick test. Let's go back to the initial page. Oh no, seems to work fine, just took a little longer for some reason. Let's refresh. Okay, much quicker this time. Let's try one of these pages. Looks good. Let's try an error. Looks good. A different backend perhaps. Looks good too. So it looks like this got set correctly, so that callback is definitely getting used. Looks like all the event handlers are working, so this looks fine. I'm actually going to commit this. I'll say that I'm refactoring some code into continuation passing style. Okay, I think that's about enough for today. So next time, what I'd like to concentrate on is trying to encapsulate the view code. Since we have a lot of jQuery code just sort of interspersed among other things, I think it'd be quite nice to see if we can find a nice way to encapsulate each of the UI controls. So yeah, let me know if you have any questions. Thanks very much.